are at Nearfest. This is day 2. Yesterday turned out to be pretty good. One of the things that I did yesterday, and you'll see coming up next, is an interview with the 3 candidates running for ARRL director. And they're all pretty good. The incumbent, Fred, I spoke to him for about 90 minutes afterwards, and we had quite a good conversation. But you'll see the brief comments that 3 of them made. They were also interviewed here at a forum, and you'll see some pictures. What happened in there? The pictures are in there. What do you do when you're not involved in ham radio?
Boy, that's not a lot of my life, actually.
Your job, basically.
Well, I have a day job, and that is that I represent a lot of radio hams getting permits for antennas, and anybody else who wants to get a permit.
What are your qualifications to do that?
Well, I'm a member of the bar in the District of Columbia and in the state of Maine. I've been a licensed lawyer since forever, and I wrote the book called Antenna Zoning for the Radio Amateur, which is now in its 3rd edition for the ARRL, and I wrote the book called Antenna Zoning Professional Edition for the Society of Broadcast Engineers.
Okay, and then the ARRL has had quite a turnover of CEOs. Do you have any commentary on that?
Well, I've only picked one. The picking of the 2 priors occurred before my time. So
is the one you picked still there?
He definitely is. And I think he was, in the end, a good choice. And the reason is, he came out of a retail industry. He knows something about creating and protecting a brand, and he knows about marketing because he didn't spend his life in a laboratory or doing things that were not, what he did do was things that appealed to the public. He understands how to assemble programs.
We know you're Fred, and you're running for New England Division Director. You are running you're the incumbent.
Yes.
Why are you running?
I've enjoyed the work. I really think I've contributed something to the league, especially in my most recent adventure having to do with the management of the league's endowment, where it's going to make a real financial difference.
What is the league's endowment?
It depends on how you want to count it, whether you include the foundation money or just the leagues. But if you combine the 2, it's in the $40 million neighborhood.
And what have you done, or what do you plan to do with it?
I discovered that it had been managed by one person, virtually unsupervised, for 40 years. 30 years under K1LU, 10 years under K7GM. Both hardworking, honest, nice guys, but not an investment management firm. The first was a community banker, the second is a professor of accounting at Eastern Carolina University. And the board wasn't really doing its job of supervising the management of the endowment, because people are named to the board because they're good at ham radio, not because they're good at investment management. Well, I said that we should bring in professional management. This is a big chunk of money. And I also said we could afford to take more risk. And over time, since we didn't actually need the money in any given year, the risk would reward us with more money to take on the kinds of special projects that you need to spend money on. Special projects like developing better educational materials, like having a bigger presence in world radio conferences, like spending more money on our representation before the FCC.
Now, what do you invest in? Now, what did you invest in before? What did they invest in before? Because it has been said you're doing stocks and stock options.
We're not doing stock options. We had a lot of ETFs and mutual funds, a few individual stocks, but at the $40 million mark, you can afford to assemble your own portfolio, and you don't have to pay the additional management fees that come with ETFs and mutual funds.
Yeah, an ETF, why don't you define for people that don't know what an ETF is?
Exchange traded fund. It's a mutual fund by another name.
And it's pretty much an index fund, correct?
It's a block of stocks that doesn't change. A mutual fund that's actively managed, the holdings of the mutual fund can change. In an exchange-traded fund, the holdings do not change.
And a managed fund, I don't know if the public is aware of this, but an index fund actually beats 80% of managed funds. I know Vanguard does a lot with index funds. So how is now if you have a stock market crash or back what we had in during the pandemic, that must have concerned you a bit.
Well, yes, and that's part of the analysis that you go through. Think of it this way. How much can we afford to take as a hit to the value of our endowment in any given year? Let's look at the need for funds. Each year, on average, over the past many years, we've been withdrawing about $500,000.
Out of 40 million?
Out of 40 million.
Okay.
Let's call it next to nothing. So this means that if in a bad year the endowment went down 10%, lost $4 million, we'd be at $36 million. We'd still be able to afford a $500,000 or $1 million draw to support projects at the league. Since we could afford the risk, my view was we should take the risk.
And what were they primarily investing in prior to this? This goes back a couple of years now.
Well, if you go way back, we had a lot of CDs back in the days when CDs paid something. CDs pay next to nothing these days. Commercial bonds paying next to nothing these days. Just think about it this way. If you can get a 2.5%, 3.5% mortgage,
yeah, the bond, right.
The bond market is not paying a lot. This
Okay.
doesn't make it a very good investment. And if you have 50 or 60% of your investment portfolio in things that don't pay very much, I was of the view, and I still am of the view, that we aren't really doing what we could for the members by taking on risk, gaining the advantage of the reward that comes
Right.
with the risk, so that we can then have the money to spend on special projects.
Okay, changing a bit, what is the advantage of keeping you in the position versus bringing someone else? One of the candidates has experience in the position, another one does not.
Right, so one candidate has over 25 years in the position. My view was time to limit that term.
Okay.
The other candidate has been a ham for 10 years now, has moved to New England, and has made himself a really valuable member of the Nashua, New Hampshire community. But I'm not as convinced that he's tied to the rest of New England in ways that I am, for example.
Where were you born? Were you born in New England?
I'm a native Bostonian. I went to
Okay.
college in Maine. I own land in Vermont. And having been a ham for a very long time,
When were you licensed?
1956.
Oh,
So I've been a licensed ham for 65 years.
how old were you? 12?
10.
10. Okay. Okay.
So I have more ties around New England over 65 years than anyone who's been here 10 years might have. As well you can imagine.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't have to, usually with everybody I ask what their name and call is, but I don't think I'm going to have that much difficulty. You were past the, when were you a director? How many years were you a director? ARRL director?
I lost 3 years ago.
Okay.
So-
So you're coming up now.
Yeah,
And you're running against two other people.
yeah, K1VR and AB1OC.
So let me talk to you first about Nearfest. How does it feel to be back here?
It's wonderful.
Um,
I've never gotten here this early in the morning. It was very dark when I left this morning.
where do you live?
Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah,
What part of Connecticut?
Near Springfield, Mass.
Okay. How long was the trip?
So it's 2.5 hours.
That's not too bad. I come from Cape Cod, but
Yeah,
I
it's a
was,
while.
yeah, I was up here last night. I was up,
Yeah,
but going through Boston was hell.
yeah, I can imagine.
And okay. And did you bring up anything to sell?
Nothing to sell. Nope. I've got some handouts for my campaign,
Okay.
and I'm looking around for bargains.
Why should, now I'm going to talk a little bit about when is the election? Is it,
The ballots have been sent out, so
right,
people should have received them.
okay.
They have to be received back by November 19th.
Okay, so I'll certainly have this video edited by then,
Yeah.
so that'll help. Why should anyone vote for you over the other two candidates?
The other two candidates are good. I think I have more experience and over a longer period of time and have a broader knowledge of ARRL.
Okay. How did you, now they've gone through a couple of CEOs,
5 years, 5 CEOs.
and why has that been, do you think?
They haven't picked the right person.
Okay, well that's kind of obvious.
The first, after Dave Sumner retired, there have been three CEOs hired by the board and 2 interim ones in between them. Each one lasted 2 years. The most recent one has only been there a year, and so far so good.
Does it look like he's going to last?
I think so, but I don't know because I haven't seen it from the inside. And the other two, the board picked. I didn't like the choices, but the rest of the board liked them, and they didn't last 2 years each.
Okay, and has the president's changed?
No.
Okay.
Same president.
Okay, so that's been there a while. Yeah. Is it possible to bring Dave Sumner back? He was.
No, he's happy retired.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks.
Yeah,
One other question,
yeah.
in case people might not recognize you, because you don't look the same as when you did when the last time you were here. How have you changed physically?
150 pounds less.
How do you feel?
I feel good.
Okay. And how did you do it?
Just not eating.
That is
Not as much.
Not as much.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay, you are Fred.
Fred, AB10C. Hello.
And you're running for?
New England ARRL Division Director.
And can you give me a reason why would anyone vote for you?
Well, I'm all about trying to get more people into amateur radio, get more folks active on the air, and improve public support for amateur radio. I think these are pretty fundamental things that will help with a lot of the issues that the ARRL and amateur radio are facing. I've been doing this kind of work for the last 5 years and know quite a lot about it. I've also had a lot of experience as an executive on industry boards where I'm able to create a lot of positive change and benefits for the folks that were involved in those organizations.
What boards have you been on?
I led program development and work on a board called ADIS, which was telecommunications operators and vendors across the world. A very diverse set of folks who had very conflicting issues that they wanted addressed. And I was able to build a lot of consensus and get people there to work together and solve problems. Did so well there that once I retired, the ADIS organization actually paid me as a consultant to continue doing that work for them.
Are you active on the air now?
Yes, I am. I've made over 100,000 contacts in the last 10 years, so I've been very active on the air.
Okay, when was the last time you were on the air?
Yesterday evening, and I was on 60 meters trying to get 3DAO in Swaziland.
Okay, and the ARRLs they've had a kind of a what is that, when you go round and round and round on the CEOs?
Right.
What's the deal with that?
Well, I think a couple things happened there. First of all, some of the choices that were made there were not the best ones. And the good news, I guess, is that folks figured that out fairly quickly and got some new folks in. So I also think it's very, very important that the board play the right role with the CEO. I think the board's been a little bit too involved in micromanaging the day-to-day operations of league headquarters, which is never a good thing to do. And quite frankly, not nearly enough involved in working the bigger issues like, are we going to get more people involved in amateur radio? How are we going to build public support? What's the strategy to improve the ARRL's membership and business model going forward? These are the kind of issues that the board should be worried about, rather than trying to micromanage the operations of headquarters.
Now, you're the current director, is that correct?
Actually, no.
Okay.
That would be Fred Hopengarten is the current director.
So there's two Freds.
There's two Freds. I'm Fred number 2.
Okay. Now we're back at Nearfest, and how do you feel about being back here?
I think it's great. You know, we've done a lot of work here. My group has with youth displays that some of you may all remember who've been here previously. We put those efforts on. And I think it's great to see that Hamfests are starting to get active again, and we're starting to come through the COVID.
Did you bring anything to sell or buy? Are you going to buy? Or
I'm going to be looking to do some buying and hopefully talk to as many people here as I can over the course of the weekend. I'm really looking forward to that.
And have we changed presidents? I shouldn't say we, I'm not a member anymore, but have they changed presidents?
No, the current president is Rick Roddick, and he's been in that position for quite a while. So no new presidents, just a new CEO in about the last year. That would be David Minster.